the key to safe driving on the roadways. Unfortunately, many drivers do not take advantage of this tool. They do not read traffic signs. I'm going to give you information about being a safer, smarter driver and reading traffic signs. Marion is here and a few other people are here. Hello from rainy Vancouver. And yes, we are definitely having a warm spell in the northwest of the United States and Canada. It is above average temperatures. We were going to go skiing this weekend at Mount Baker and it is raining there and I really don't want to go skiing in the rain. My face, yes, I got beat up at jiu-jitsu yesterday and unfortunately was doing... I should have just tapped. But no, I'm a little bit stubborn and subsequently my face took a beating. And so there's nothing wrong with me. It's just my face got beat up at jiu-jitsu. So I am not the poster child for jiu-jitsu. However, I do not have cauliflower ears, which is something I do not want. So here we are. Happy New Year to you as well, my friend. Elevator Fan is tuning in from Monticello, Indiana. If you're just tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. Let us know what class of license you're going for, how we can help you to become a safer, smarter driver. Marion has a question about dash cams. We can definitely answer that question about dash cams. One of the things that is completely, entirely unfair in the province of British Columbia, and it is an example of government overreach in my personal opinion, my professional opinion as well, is that you cannot challenge the decision of the insurance company in this province. You cannot take legal action against ICBC, the insurance company, the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia here in the province of British Columbia. Whatever decision they make about you and you at fault in a car crash is the final decision. You cannot seek legal action against that. And in my opinion, my professional opinion, that is not correct. It should not happen like that. There should be other people that are involved in that process to make sure that that process is fair. And it's, as I said, an example of government overreach. Corey is here. Corey is the moderator. He does an excellent job of getting up videos I suggest you have a look at for more information about becoming a safer, smarter driver, passing your driver's test, or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. Elevator Fan is, maybe truck cut me off on the Interstate 65 today. Yeah, that's unfortunately going to happen. We're going to talk about social driving as well. Next week, we'll talk more about that. Just leaving work. Paul is here. Hello, my friend. And Elevator Fan, birthday in a couple of weeks. That is awesome, my friend. Looking forward to that, I am sure. Marion, it's definitely not fair, and I don't know whether having a dash cam is going to help you out or not. That's my preliminary assessment of getting a dash cam, and unfortunately there are too many people on the internet, too many hacks that are saying you need a dash cam. The unfortunate part about dash cams, as I have said in the past, is that they are a double-edged sword. They don't just help you out and prove that you were right or prove that you were wrong. Sometimes what you did is wrong. As you know, I run a dash cam in the buggy all the time, and there are times that I am participating in social driving, and there are things that I'm doing that if there was a crash, I would be at fault. Now, one thing that I don't ever do is I can't say that I do not. I rarely give up space in front of my vehicle. I always have that 3 to 4 second following distance, and as conditions deteriorate, as road traffic weather conditions deteriorate, I increase that following distance behind other traffic, and that is something that is consistent in the dash cam footage that I have from my vehicle. Now, I have a Garmin dash cam in my vehicle. Garmin is a fairly expensive brand of dash cams. I know that it was probably 5 years ago that I purchased that dash cam, and I know that it was in the hundreds of dollars. There are many dash cams on Amazon now that have a front and a rear camera, and they're affordable. They're very affordable. They've been around for a long time now, and they've come down in price. There's lots of recommendations on Amazon, so I would just go on there, look at the most favorite or Amazon recommendation for the dash cam that you need to purchase. And again, it comes back to risk assessment. about your own personal risk, about whether you just feel better having a dash cam in your vehicle. I mean, once they're in there, it's kind of hit it and quit it. You put the SD card in it, the recording chip, and it will record. Mine records every 6 hours, and then it just records over the old footage. And you can push a button and it will save the footage. If you want to save something for whatever reason, if there's a crash or whatnot, you can just push the button and it will save that footage. Otherwise, it will write over that footage. And I've had that happen, unfortunately. Last week, I was talking about sliding into the McDonald's at Golden, went back to look at the footage. I didn't save it at the time it happened. I didn't really think anything of it. And then I went to use it for the live stream when I put it up on Saturday, and it wasn't there. Denver. Listening from St. Lucia. Hello, my friend. How are you? How is the weather there? As I said, I can almost tell from my YouTube channel whether the views are up or the views are down, what the weather is like in North America, depending on the views on the YouTube channel, because I have pretty much the market cornered on winter driving videos. And if the views are up, it's storming somewhere in North America. If the views are down, it's not storming anywhere. And as I said, we were planning to do our annual trip to go skiing at Mount Baker in Washington State, which is an hour and a half from Bellingham, and it is raining. Actually, Glacier, the nearest town to Mount Baker, has flood warnings, so know that as well. If you go somewhere in the United States, in the mountains and other places, make sure that you check for flood warnings because of the snow melting. When I was at the dog park this morning, the creek was up because we've had rain and the snow is melting in the mountains, so it comes down. Of course, obviously the creek floods. So there is a lot of rain and a lot of melting of snow in and around here in the Northwest where I live. Marion, the lady suggested I go to Costco, as the ones there cost $130 for front and back cameras. Marion, $130 seems a little expensive. Personally, it's just my personal thing. I wouldn't buy electronics from Costco. Okay? That's just my personal bias against Costco. I would just go on Amazon and have a look on Amazon and buy one just go on Amazon and buy one from Amazon, and you can return it. They're under warranty and all those types of things. Femi, is it compulsory to use the rear camera? We're talking about dash cams and talking about rear-mounted dash cams. Femi, I think what you're talking about backup cameras on cars. Any car after 2014 is fitted with a backup camera. You can use a backup camera on a driver's test and for purposes of safety, but you need to use all your other tools as well, and what I mean by that is you need to be scanning, you need to be looking out through the back window, 360-degree awareness around your vehicle, especially for the purposes of a driver's test and making sure that you pass your driver's test. Yeah, have a look there for sure, Marion. I mean, Costco is always an option. My personal bias against Costco is I should not have to buy a membership to shop somewhere. That's my personal bias. But people always say to me, oh, you're going to save so much money, blah, blah, blah. And every time I talk to somebody, they always say that every time they go to Costco, they spend $400, $800. My mom calls it the $800 shop-up store. So that's my personal bias against Costco is, yeah, you can save money, but I think that you can save just as much money at Superstore or the Wholesale Club or any other, bulk supermarket, Walmart and those types of places. I think you can just save just as much money as you can at Costco. So there you go. Paul, does backup cameras record incidents? Paul, no, they don't. Backup cameras do not record incidents. You need a not a backup camera. You need a dash cam to record incidents when you're driving and to be able to save that video footage. All right. And as I said, dash cams, I am not advocating one way or the other for dash cams. That is a personal decision based on your own aversion and your own level of accepting risk when you're driving in society. So know that. when you're driving. So it's a personal decision about dash cams, because as I said, driving is a social activity. We participate in social driving. We make mistakes when we're driving, and I run a dash cam. I run a dash cam all the time that I'm driving because I want to catch footage to be able to teach and help you out, the smart drivers out there, and give them education. And that's the reason that I run a dash cam. I don't run a dash cam because I think that when I get into a crash, I'm going to be able to say to somebody else, oh, you know, this is what happened and that's what happened, and those types of things. It's not the reason I run a dash cam. But when I look at the footage, I'm doing all kinds of things that are not best practices for driving. That's what I'm going to say to you. I get caught up in social driving. But one of the consistent things that I never do, and one of the things that I preach and talk about, space management. If you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to not hit something. I always have space in front. I always have that 3 to 4 second following distance. If road conditions, weather conditions, traffic conditions deteriorate, I increase that following distance in front. And I had a smart driver say the other day, last week when I put the video up on driving in snow, I was doing 70 miles an hour on the Trans-Canada Highway through the mountains on hardpack. But I'm going in a straight line. Believe me, you, curves, corners, and turns on slippery, compromised traction, I am slowing down going around the curves, corners, and turns. I am not doing that speed. But in a straight line with snow tires on the buggy, you're perfectly safe, okay? And as well, as I've talked about previously in winter driving, all vehicles, most vehicles, 98% of vehicles in this day and age are going to be front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or four-wheel drive. Very few vehicles, I mean, unless you're driving a Camaro or you're driving a Mustang GT, are going to be rear-wheel drive. So you're going to have the best traction with these types of drivetrains on your vehicles. Corey's put up the video there on getting a backup camera, and actually that was an extraction from a live stream some months ago. And I'm gonna reshoot that because I want to be more specific in terms of talking about dash cams, and maybe putting in some footage and some opinions of other professionals here on the internet to help you out and make the best informed decision about getting a dash cam. So we're talking about traffic signs. I've been talking about traffic signs. We got off on other topics here, driver education topics, helping you out. Traffic signs are broken into classifications. Regulatory signs, the root word of regulatory is regulation, which means it is the law and you must follow it. And if you do get a traffic ticket for action contrary to a traffic sign, it almost always will be a regulatory sign, i.e. speeding. That's probably the biggest one that you're going to get a traffic ticket for. The only time that I did get a traffic ticket for a sign that was not a regulatory sign was action contrary to a sign, which was turning against the left turn was prohibited, made a left-hand turn. Of course, I was in Toronto. This was many, many years ago for the very brief time that I drove a limousine and got a traffic ticket. But they were trying to control traffic in and around the stadium where we were going and taking people down to see the show at the stadium. So that was the one time that I got a ticket for action contrary to a traffic sign. If you're moving to a larger vehicle, you're going to tow a trailer, you're going to start driving a small bus, or any bus for that matter, or driving a CDL vehicle, you are going to have to start paying attention to traffic signs and reading traffic signs, because the signs along the roadway are going to give you information about the roadway that you're on, directions, where you're going, patterns. If the road is curvy, if it's going to move to the left, if it's going to move to the right, it will give you all the information that you know. Roads are not there to trick you, and they're not. Most people unfortunately just follow other traffic on the roadway, as opposed to reading the traffic signs and making their own decisions about what is their best defensive posturing when driving. So if you want to do one thing that is going to improve all your driving, start reading road signs to be predictable and proactive on the roadway. Femi, I can't stop following you because we learn every day, which I also send the link to my colleagues, which they also confirmed what they learned. Femi, that is awesome. Thank you for the support and being part of the Smarter Driver community, my friend. That is awesome information. So glad that we can help out. So traffic signs broken into classifications. Cautionary signs are probably the most prolific signs on our roadways. Often they are diamond shaped with yellow background and a symbol or writing thereon. The way that traffic signs convey information are in three ways: the shape of the sign, the colors, and the symbols or words written thereon are the way that they convey information. So cautionary signs, school signs are probably the least standardized of all the school signs. Probably the most prolific school sign is school in area, and it's the pentagon, which is the shape of the house that you used to draw when you were in kindergarten. School signs, one thing that is standard about school signs is they always have two people on them as opposed to one. One person is a recreation area, a park or an arena or something like that. And the way that I remember that is when two vowels go walking, one does the talking. You know, that little mnemonic from when you were in grade school. And that is the way that I remember school signs. Construction signs warn of temporary conditions along the roadway, and they are sometimes, not always, diamond in shape. Again, orange background, black lettering or symbols thereon. And then there's a plethora of other types of signs. Destination signs will tell you how far the next city is away. Hospital signs, park areas, recreation areas, destinations, those types of things. The unfortunate part about traffic signs is that they become mixed in with all the other signs that are along our roadways, and unfortunately they kind of get lost in the noise of the information that is coming at us as we're driving along the roadway. And the reason that oftentimes people don't read the traffic signs is because they're following too close to the traffic in front of them. They're too busy focused on reacting to what's going on in the traffic environment, the driving environment. And because of that, rather than reading traffic signs, they're too busy reacting. If you increase your following distance, manage space better in front of your vehicle, it will give you time to work, to not only respond to changing traffic conditions, because traffic is changing all the time, but also to be able to read the signs as you're moving along the roadway. And it doesn't take that long to read the traffic signs. You have to read them, and you have to put that information into your head. And years ago when I was teaching truck driving, I wasn't teaching truck driving, I was mentoring a truck driver who had just finished truck driving school. And I was trying to impress upon him that he needed to read the traffic signs. Now, of course, this is in the days before GPS. Now we have GPS, and most of the advanced GPS, the road signs come up on our GPS and will tell you what the speed limit is, whether there's cautionary signs telling you that the road is going to curve left and right, or the merge speed, recommended merge speed, and those types of things. However, this was in the days before traffic signs, and you had to read everything. You had to pay attention, especially when you're driving big trucks and you're trying to navigate and figure out where you're going on the roadways. And, I said to him, what's the last traffic sign? And I had asked him several times, numerous times, what's the last traffic sign? Oh, I don't know. Well, I don't know. And then finally, after the 11th, 15th time that I asked him this, I said, pull the truck over. What? Pull the truck over. Run back there and tell me what that last traffic sign was. I think I finally got through to him when I made him do that, because I think by the time he got the truck pulled over, it was about a half kilometer back. They are still very important to your defensive driving. And mile markers, as I'll talk about in the presentation, are probably one of your most defensive driving signs that you can incorporate into your driving. You're driving along a state road or a highway, there's going to be mile markers. You take and pay attention to the mile markers. In your route planning, if you know that you're going to get off at exit 375 and you're at exit 370, you know that your exit is 5 miles up the road, so therefore you can stay in the middle lane for another couple miles, and then you can start moving over to the right as you get up to 373, 374, and you know that a mile up ahead, and that way you're not going to do what I call the swastika lane change to get off at your merge, off the interstate, off the freeway. and it is going to make you much more proactive and predictable, and it's going to make you safe on the roadways when you're moving on and off the freeways. Mile marker signs. Take note of those. And also, in every state except New York, because New York likes to be different, the exit number and the mile marker number are going to be one and the same. So if it's exit 373, you know that you're going to get off at exit 373 and it's mile marker 373. So when I come from Vancouver and I'm coming back past Kamloops, I know that the exit to come to Vernon is exit 399. Now in Canada, it's in kilometers. In the United States, it's going to be in miles. And the other thing about the interstate system in the United States is north-south interstates are odd numbers. East-west are even numbers in the United States. And oftentimes, Ohio, for example, it's mile marker 213 in Toledo. And then once you get down to Cincinnati and you cross into Kentucky, it goes to mile marker 0, and then it goes at the top of Kentucky. I'm not sure what the mile marker is there, but you get the idea. Okay, so mile marker numbers, road numbers, exit numbers, all of that is going to help you out and make you a smarter, safer driver when driving in interstates and freeways. And when you're doing your route planning, doing your navigation, have a look at that. Figure out what those numbers are, and don't just go by the exit numbers or whatever your GPS is telling you that you need to get off at Smythe Ave and those types of things. All right, so traffic signs. We'll get over here to the presentation. We'll get through the presentation. It'll be 10 or 12 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll spend the remainder of the hour answering any questions you have about becoming a safer, smarter driver, or passing a driver's test, or starting a career as a truck or bus driver. So reading road signs, traffic signs along the roadway. As I said, if you want to become a safer, smarter driver, this is one thing that you can do in addition to managing space around your vehicle, keeping that space in front, signaling early, communicating well with other traffic. You can read traffic signs and take in that information and incorporate that information into your driving. That will make you a safer, smarter driver along the roadway. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I hauled freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States, and it's crazy to think that the 1990s was almost 30 years ago, 3 decades. I became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. Most of my career teaching driver education has been big trucks, semi-trucks, buses, logbooks, air brakes. I have an expertise in air brakes as well. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with a doctorate in legal history, which is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. My expertise is in policing as it relates to traffic. While I was going to university, I drove buses for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there in Australia as well. And so I have experience, international experience, driving professionally. When I was driving buses for coaches, I also worked as a trainer for a short period of time before heading off to university and finishing my PhD. You want to know more about me, you can check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test website and know more about the business and more about me. All right, good videos to have a look at. Actually, Marion, there's the one video. Corey put that up there. Why get a dash cam? And is also shoulder check, shoulder check, shoulder check. In addition to reading traffic signs, shoulder checking every time you change directions of the vehicle. And people will come back to me and say, oh, well, I just drove by that. Why do I need to shoulder check? You need to shoulder check because traffic is always changing. People become complacent and they lose the skills that will make them a safer, smarter driver, especially with newer cars and the sheer number of observation technologies that are now incorporated into new cars. These are eroding people's driving skills. Backup cameras, proximity sensors, blind spot detectors. These observation technologies are great, but they're just a backup to good driving skills. All right, the ways that traffic signs convey information, the shape of the sign, the colors, most classifications, as I said, regulatory signs are generally a white background with black lettering on them. They're rectangular in shape. Cautionary signs are yellow, diamond shape, and black lettering and symbols thereon. Construction signs are orange background, diamond in shape, and have black letters and symbols thereon. So this is the way that you can glean information at a glance looking at traffic signs if you know the classifications and what the symbols on these mean. Now, there are two different kinds of signs. My friend Epic isn't here right now, but he can tell me the European classification of traffic signs. But again, they are fairly friendly, user-friendly. It's pretty easy to determine what the sign means just by looking at it when you go to Europe or you're driving here in North America. Okay, road sign classifications, regulatory signs, school signs, cautionary signs, lane control signs, and object marker signs. These are different classifications of road signs. Object marker signs warn you of fixed objects along the roadway and hazards. And these object marker signs, as I'm going to talk about right now, are probably the most prolific signs on the roadway. These signs, now that I've pointed them out and you are attending the presentation either here on the live stream or watching on the replay, hazard obstruction, object marker signs, hazard obstruction signs, one and the same. These signs are long and rectangular and have hash marks on them. Think of a kettle of water pouring onto the hash marks. The side that the water pours off is the side that you will pass on, and it's either to the right, to the left, or either to the right and to the left. And you'll often see these right and left ones on slip lanes. If you got a slip lane to the right, you can either go straight through and pass on the left, or you can go to the right and pass on the right. These will be on bridge abutments, trees, all of the traffic calming goofiness that's going on in our urban planning right now, with all these young urban planners trying to make their mark in cities and putting in bicycle lanes and whatnot. These object markers are becoming even more prolific in the urban landscape. Regulatory signs in the United States, railroad crossing signs are regulatory signs. Here in Canada, they are not part of the regulatory signs. Excuse me. Stop signs, yield signs, railway crossing, brake check signs, these are all regulatory signs and mean that you must pass, you must obey them, because the root word of regulatory is regulation, which is the law. And if you're going to get a fine for disobeying a traffic sign along the roadway, it's probably going to be a regulatory sign. Cautionary signs, again, these are right up there with hazard obstruction signs. They're probably the most prolific on the roadway. Some of them are interesting information. For example, most people driving cars are not going to pay attention to height signs. However, if you graduate to driving a bus or you graduate to driving a big truck, a semi-truck, height signs are going to become very, very important. There are whole YouTube channels, Twitter channels that are based on bridges that are low bridges and eat at least 6 or 7 trucks a year or more for that matter. But they make great videos, and lots of people like to watch these videos of trucks crashing into bridges. So pay attention to the height signs. When I was driving truck in the 1990s and we were going into Chicago in Illinois, there was a fact, and I would need to fact check this, that there were 2,500 low bridges and overpasses. And even more interesting, there was a railway trestle that you could go under just fine if there wasn't a train sitting on it, but if there was a train sitting on it, you couldn't go under it because the train brought the bridge down 3 or 4 inches. That was just enough that you couldn't get a truck under it. So some of these are relevant, some of them not so much. If you're going around curves on interstates or getting off an off ramp, there is a cautionary speed, and for the first few times that you get off on that off ramp, if you're living in the area, then make sure that you reduce speed to that cautionary sign on the slip lane, the exit lane, whatnot, because you don't know the area, and until you get to know the area, then you can maybe go a little bit faster. Large vehicles, destination signs, overhead signs, construction signs match the speed of the flow of traffic after you get your driver's license, because it's going to make you more predictable on the roadways. So as I said, as you graduate to larger vehicles and you start pulling trailers, you start driving big, huge pickup trucks, buses, garbage trucks, whatnot, all these signs are going to be more important and play a larger role in your driving and your defensive driving skills. Lane usage signs. These are overhead the lanes. Excuse me. And they work in tandem with road markings. Now, as we've gone to environmental paints, we now know that in any city that gets snow, and they have snow plows and sanders and those types of things, the line markings, the road markings have to be repainted every spring. Pay attention to the lane usage signs, which tell you what the lane is designated for, because if you have a straight through lane, you can only go straight through if you are in that lane, or a left turning lane. You can only turn left if you are in that lane. And again, if you're pulling a trailer, you graduate to a larger vehicle and you're in the wrong lane, you could potentially strike a fixed object as you're going around the corner if you're in the wrong lane. Mile marker signs, as I was talking about previously in the introduction, mile marker signs are your biggest defensive driving tool when on the freeway. If you know your exit number, you can be more proactive and predictable as you're moving along the interstate, along the freeway, and know exactly when you're getting off the freeway. Because if you know that your exit number is 375 and you're at exit 373, you know that you have 2 miles up the road that you're going to get off the interstate. In addition to that, it gives the kids something to do if you're doing road trips with the family. And say, for example, you're going to exit 370 and you're at exit 270 and it's 100 miles up the road and you're doing 60 miles an hour. You can give them that information and they can figure out how long it's going to take you to drive 100 miles. Most of the time, it's going to take you about 2 hours to drive 100 miles. This is the information that mile markers will provide when you're driving along the interstates and state roads in the United States of America. And we have them here on the Trans-Canada as well. They start at 0 in Vancouver and they go up as you progress east across the Trans-Canada, across the province of British Columbia. Okay, they will keep you safe. And just as a note, New York likes to be different. State of New York, so know that the exit numbers and the mile marker numbers are not the same in the state of New York. Every other place that I know of is the same except for New York. Good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Epic, my friend. Additionally, when driving to an airport, they have different colored signs and different fonts instead of usual highway Gothic and Clearview fonts. Pay attention to different fonts and highway signs. Thank you for that, Epic. I did not know that about airport signs, but airport signs are definitely one of the places where you need to pay attention to signs, especially if you're returning a rental car there at the airport. Pay attention to where you need to go to return the vehicle, drop the keys off, and those types of things. The signs at the airports are very clear, because keep in mind that thousands of people every day figure out how to get their rental car back to the drop-off place at the airport. Same thing, we went to the Calgary airport at Christmas here, and I parked the car in the economy parking, and we had to figure out where it was. It took us a little bit. We kind of went up the wrong way and then came back and we went around and we did find the economy parking. And it didn't really look like it was on the map, because I looked at the map before we headed out to Calgary, and they said it was like a 10-minute walk into the airport from economy parking. Now, maybe if you were at the absolute farthest corner of the parking lot, it was 10 minutes, but from where we were, it was like 5 minutes to get into the airport. So if you go to Calgary and you don't want to pay for inside parking and you want to park in the economy, it's well worth it. Okay, it's not a very far walk into the Calgary airport. Corey, do semi-trucks drivers typically have a note in the vehicle about its own height? No, Corey, they need to memorize that the vehicle is 4.15 meters or 13 feet 6 inches. So in the United States, it's 13 feet 6 inches. Here in Canada, it's 4.15 meters. Excuse me. Marion, shuttle bus. No, There was no shuttle bus. No, we walked into the airport with our luggage. Like I said, it was only about 5 minutes into the airport, so it wasn't too far away. The other thing that we could have done that somebody suggested to me was we could have left the car at the airport and got the shuttle to the airport. The only what happened was that the flight was so early. It was 5:30 in the morning, so we had to get up at like 3:30 to be at the airport, and the shuttle didn't start running until 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So we just went and parked at the airport. And it was inexpensive. It was only $85 for the week to park at the airport. So I thought it was a really good deal. It wasn't very much. Black, can you confirm position to establish when making left turn at an intersection? Okay, so excellent question. Okay. Corey, the other thing, Corey, that's an excellent question. Just going back to the height signs. Excuse me. If you rent a U-Haul vehicle, they will have the height of the vehicle inside of it for people that are renting U-Haul trucks. Because the average person is not going to know that the maximum height of the vehicle is 13 feet 6 inches or 4.15 meters. So yes, if you do rent a U-Haul vehicle, you need to know the height of your vehicle, and you need to start paying attention to height signs. There have been quite a number of incidents with U-Hauls over the years where people tried to turn the roof into a convertible and it didn't open up or go the way that they wanted it to. So, height signs. Commercial vehicles, however, if you are driving a coach, a highway coach for Greyhound, or you're driving a semi-truck, you need to know that it's 13 feet 6 inches in the United States, and you need to know that the maximum height in Canada is 4.15 meters. Okay, so left turning. So there's two schools of thinking on left turns. One school of thinking is to move into the intersection and turn left from inside the intersection. I do not advocate that. That is not your best defensive driving posture when turning left at an intersection. You want to wait at the edge of the intersection, and your landmark for that is front steer tires, so the front tires of the car on the front crosswalk line. When the gap presents itself, and what I mean by the gap is, so there's a car coming, you can see behind it, there's a large space, you can turn in behind that vehicle. When that vehicle on the other side of the intersection hits the stop line on the other side of the intersection, you can start driving straight into the intersection. And it's called meeting the gap. You're meeting the gap. So this car is coming through the intersection. This car goes through the intersection. You're driving straight forward. And when this car goes past, then you turn. The couple of reasons that I advocate that, and this is how I teach new drivers to turn left at intersections, is first, if you're not in the intersection and something happens, you're not going to be involved in it. Second, you get through the intersection faster because you can get a bit of speed up before you turn left as you're moving through the intersection, especially at larger intersections, and that will make your turn happen more quickly, and you're reducing the amount of time that you're in the crosshairs of the oncoming traffic. Know that for the purposes of making left-hand turns. Finally, the last reason, excuse me, the last reason when you stay back at the edge of the intersection and you're waiting at the edge of the intersection, you have a better line of sight at the intersection because you're watching three things as you're sitting waiting to move through the intersection. You're watching the traffic light, you're watching the oncoming traffic, and you're watching the pedestrians on the cross street because the pedestrians on the cross street have the right of way. If you're back, you can see those pedestrians and you can track their movement as they're moving through the intersection. If you're in the intersection, you cannot see and track those pedestrians as they're moving through the intersection, and you have to physically shoulder check. You have to turn your head. And again, that creates a whole blind area in your vehicle that you need to deal with, and you need to move your body around so that you can see that clearly. So there's three reasons. First, if something happens in the intersection and you're waiting at the edge, you're not in it. Second, You're going to meet the gap and you're going to move through the intersection faster. And finally, a better line of sight when you're waiting back at the edge of the intersection as opposed to being in the intersection. Now, I am up against it with other people who are saying you need to move in the intersection. You're not going to move more traffic through the intersection if you're in the intersection, because the traffic, your vehicle is trying to start from a dead stop, and now you don't have as much speed up when you're making the turn. In the state of New York, Corey will put up the video with Big Mac Sam. They deduct points if you don't move into the intersection on the test in the state of New York. Unfortunately, I don't advocate it. It's not right, and they should not be doing that for the purposes of the driver's test, because it is not your best defensive driving posturing. And when you're learning how to drive and preparing for a driver's test, you should be learning best practices and skills that will keep you safe when you're driving long term over the duration of your driving career. All right? Because the other thing, we know that the average driver crashes once every 15 to 17 years. So you're going to go along for a very long stretch of time thinking that what you're doing is safe, and then one day it's going to catch up to you and it's not going to be safe anymore. And unfortunately, most drivers don't take any professional driver training. They don't upgrade their skills. So the way that they learn to drive is by watching what other people are doing, and what other people are doing for the most part is engaging in social driving, and it is not best practices when it comes to defensive driving and being safe on the roadway. Corey's put up that video with Big Mac Sam. Have a look at that. Really great video. Lots of good information in there with Sam as well. 7X, I was asking, when your own test, are you allowed to overtake a vehicle, or should you wait? If you overtake, is that an automatic fail? 7X, for the purposes of a driver's test, you are going to be doing, excuse me. For the purposes of a driver's test, you're going to be doing the posted speed limit. It's very unlikely that you're going to be going faster than anybody else on the roadway. Therefore, it's not likely that you're going to be passing other vehicles. Now, saying that, if you're on a 2-lane road and you need to move around another vehicle, a garbage truck or a pedestrian or those types of things, then you need to make sure that you do that correctly. Corey will put up the video for you on moving around pedestrians, changing lanes. So you need to mirror signal, shoulder check, move into the other lane, move around the obstruction, make sure that there isn't any oncoming traffic, and then mirror signal, shoulder check back into your lane if you're going to overtake. So you can do it in certain circumstances, but for the most part, if you're on a multi-lane road, you need to be in the right-hand lane, because you're going to be the slowest vehicle on that roadway when you're driving. So yes and no. All right. Epic, for no turn signs, the red circle with a cross, then with the arrows for a right turn, left turn, and a U-turn. This is a sign with a white background too. Additionally, in New Jersey, New York City, or New York State rather, they also meant no trucks. Yes, no truck signs. That's the other thing that's fun about driving a large vehicle, is trying to find the no truck routes. And unfortunately, they don't put them on the main road. They don't put the sign like right there saying no truck route. You actually got to get around the corner, and it's up about half a block is where the no truck route is. And years ago when I was driving in New York City, and I was going into Queens, and I was driving down the road, and I was going to an address, and I'm looking, I'm kind of slowing down. I'm looking up the roads, and I'm looking for the no truck signs, and I'm looking for the no truck signs, and finally there's one with no truck signs, so I turn right to get to my destination, and I get pulled over by local police. And they had a bunch of other people, local trucks, pulled over as well, and they asked me for my destination, where I was going, my bill of lading, which are the freight documents. I gave them to them. I gave them my license. They had a look at it, and they're like, okay, you're good to go, because I was going there, and I did explain to them. I said, listen, I'm not from here. I said, I did look for the signs, but I said, this was the only road that I didn't see a sign on. So I said, this is where I'm going. They gave me a warning, let me go, went to the destination, everything worked out. But I know that there were a bunch of local trucks that did, in fact, get tickets. And sometimes these local routes, if they have trucks and those types of things on them and whatnot, if the neighborhood or the people in that along that roadway complain, then the police will take action and hand out tickets and those types of things. Epic, even in New Jersey, drivers will do advance into the intersection, also in divided highways, particularly the northeast. Some of them have jug handles. Pay attention to the turns with an arrow sign or U-turn. Yes, jug handles are something specific to excuse me, to New Jersey, and essentially you come up and instead of doing a left turn at the intersection, they have a slip lane off to the right, which comes around and takes you straight through the intersection on the cross street. Really great invention. The only problem with jug handles is they take up a lot of space and they require more land, which they never really caught on other than the state of New Jersey. 7X, as far as I know, driving is and will be unpredictable because looking at a car and driving a car is very different. Also with technology improvements and pedestrians, cyclists, etc. Yes, there's always going to be unpredictable things that happen when you're driving 7X. However, if you manage space in front, you have time to work, read the traffic signs, read the traffic patterns, you can oftentimes predict the actions of individual road users when you're driving. And the more experience you get, the easier this is going to be. When you first learn how to drive, yes, it's going to be difficult and other people are going to do goofy things. But most of the time, if you're paying attention, you're reading the traffic signs, you're interpreting the traffic patterns, you can, with a high degree of, what's the word I'm looking for? High degree of ability, you can interpret what other people are going to do. For example, you're driving down the roadway and you see a pedestrian approach a crosswalk or an intersection, there's a high probability that that pedestrian is going to cross the roadway. If you're coming along the roadway and you see a cyclist and they're shoulder checking and they're looking, you know that that cyclist is going to move out into the lane of traffic because they're shoulder checking and they're looking over their shoulder. So there are actions of other road users and you can predict what they're going to do. In addition to reading the traffic signs, as I said, that will make you a better, more defensive driver as you're operating a motor vehicle. Marion, that's why I'm glad I have an older vehicle, because I don't have all the bells and whistles to distract me. Marion, it's one of the reasons that I don't get rid of the buggy now, because they all have these telematic screens in the middle and they've got all those proximity sensors. My mate has a new truck. I think it's like a 2022. And he says that, you know, he will back up and one of the sensors will grab something and the sensor will do emergency braking. The truck will automatically come to a stop. I'm just like, yeah, that's not something I want in my vehicle. I mean, if I'm going to hit something, then yes, but for the most part, I would find that very annoying when sensors are doing those kinds of goofy things when I'm trying to drive. All right, part 2. Good evening, sir. A hug from you from Brazilian friends, Angelo dos Anjos. Please pardon my Brazil, yes, Portuguese. Great work, congratulations, thank you so much. So glad that we can help out with your driving there in Brazil. Certainly very much appreciated. Thank you for dropping us a note. 7X, especially here in Vancouver, you can't predict anything because people are just nuts. I'm sorry, but it's true. They don't wait. All they do is argue and flash their lights. 7X, it becomes even more important to just stay away from the managed space because, as I said, if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. And people are aggressive. And, you know, most places in Vancouver and other large cities will have 2 lanes of traffic. Just stay in the right lane, manage your space, and, you know, drive accordingly. There are skills. I'm not going to say that. And Cora put up the video for you on 5 defensive strategies for driving in cities. But there are techniques that you can put in place that will definitely help you out. Mary, my daughter, has a 2025 Nissan Vogue and has all the things, and I found it very distracting even while sitting in the passenger seat. Marion, I hear you. I've rented cars in Australia and in Europe, and they have all those bells and whistles. And essentially trying to figure out the radio is just crazy. And so, you know, my son is usually with me, and that is usually his job when we're driving in the rental cars, is to figure out how to work the radio and find radio stations and those types of things when we're driving. Hello from New Hampshire. Hello, my friend. New Hampshire. How is the weather in New Hampshire? Are you getting any snow at all there in New Hampshire? 7X, don't forget they honk at you in a split second. Yeah, they're going to honk first, and then they're going to, usually they're going to tell you you're number one when you're driving in these large cities, if they think that you are in their way or you are holding them up. Traffic signs. Read your traffic signs to be a smarter, safer driver on the roadways. It is the one thing that you can do in addition to having that space, maintaining that 3 to 4 second following distance in front of your vehicle, that is going to give you information that is going to make you a more predictable, a more proactive driver on the roadway, especially at bottlenecks and choke points along the roadway. If you see the merge signs, then you can merge over earlier, and that way you're not going to get stuck in at the merge point trying to get over and causing other people to brake and be unpredictable on the roadways. And people will say the zipper merging. Zipper merge doesn't work, okay? I'll leave the tirade on the zipper merge for another time. 7X, is Australian vehicles right-handed or left-handed? Australia drives on the left, so therefore their vehicles are right-hand drive. The steering wheel and all the pedals are on the other side of the vehicle. So yes, when I was driving bus, when I was driving coaches, you were driving on the left-hand side of the road. And when we went to Australia, of course, then we had to drive 5 hours to Wangaratta from Sydney, and it's not too bad when you're in traffic because it's still all relative when you're on the other side of the road and you're on the other side of the vehicle. Everything is in the same place. The pedals are in the same place. The accelerator is still on the right. The brake is on the left. Steering wheel is in the same. The only thing that's different is the shifter for the, if it's in the center and you have a console. That's the only thing that's different, is you're shifting with your other hand. But everything else is the same, and you're still relatively situated so that you're in the middle of the vehicle. But when you're not in traffic and you don't have other traffic to follow, we were trying to get out of the parking garage at the airport in the rental car. And I had to get my kids to keep saying to me and kind of repeating, left side of the road, left side of the road, left side of the road. I kept having to say that because it took me kind of a minute to get out of the airport to be able to get orientated with driving on the left side of the road and getting back to that again. But once I got out on the roadway and was following other traffic, it was fairly easy after that. Marion, yes, it is confusing at the beginning. It is confusing, especially if you're not in traffic and you're in a parking lot. It's confusing for sure. I agree with traffic signs, but remember, even if you obey traffic signs, there's still going to be someone out there who doesn't give a care about anything, and that it's another story, but it's part of it. Okay, 7X. You have this idea, this thinking in your head that it's a battle. We gotta win the battle. It's a war, and everybody is out to get me. Okay? Don't drive like that. Don't drive like that, because if you have that mindset that it's a war, it's a battle, I'm going into battle. I'm going to suit up. I'm going to put my armor on. I got my horn. I got my lights. I got my finger. I am going to tell you you are number one, and I am up. It's me against everybody else. Everybody else is screwed. I am the best driver in the world, and everybody else sucks, and it's me against them. If you have that attitude when you're driving, you are going to be so worn out every time that you come home after driving in traffic. Okay, if you think and create a better idea about driving, then driving is going to be fun. It's going to be relaxing because you just stay back, manage your space in front, have your 2 to 3 second following distance. Know that if somebody honks at you, just go, oh yeah, well, have a nice day. Go and, have your crash somewhere else, and signal early, predict. Have the idea that driving is a social activity. You're going to commute effectively with other people. Other people are going to help you out. If you signal correctly, have minimum 3 flashes on the signal before changing directions or slowing down, those types of things. If you move away from this idea of it's me against them and driving is a social activity and we all need to get along and we all need to get to go where we're going, You're going to be less stressed. I promise you that. If you just have to lose this attitude of me against the world, okay? Because driving is not about me against the world. Driving is a social activity. There's going to be those people that are going to honk at you and they're going to flash their lights and they're going to tell you number one. But take a breath and just do the Zen thing, okay? We're all going to get to where we're going. We're all going to be good, all right? I agree with some drivers going to make it hard for you even if you're doing the right thing. I do best to obey. Some drivers make it difficult for you. Sometimes I get mad at them and let them pass me. And that's what you got to do, okay? It's not a matter of if somebody's going to do something goofy. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen. It's a matter of when it's going to happen. It is going to happen. People are going to do goofy things on the roadway, but you just like, yep, okay. Wave them on, let them go, and have their crash somewhere else. But don't become fixated on it, because that's only about 10 or 15% of drivers out there. And I know this because I had a friend years ago, beautiful person. I love him to death. I still see him every now and again. But he'd get into a car, and actually Corey will put up the video for you on Mr. Wheeler and Mr. Walker, which is a Disney cartoon from the 1950s. It's on the website on my autobiography page, and you can have a look at it. He was just this Jekyll and Hyde character. He's beautiful every day, talk to you, have a conversation, but once he got into a car, he just transformed into this different person that was just aggressive and mean and just had to get to where he was going. It was just crazy. But I mean, there are drivers, you're absolutely right. There are drivers out there who are like that. And, you know, they're on the horn, they're flashing the lights, they're telling you number one. But like, as I said, just wave them on, let them go and have their crash somewhere else. Absolutely, for sure. Driving is a scene. It's like pros and cons. 7X, I don't have that experience anymore. I just, you know, maintain my space, do what I need to do. And, you know, when that happens, I just like, have a nice day, go and have your crash somewhere else. Daniel, I just wanted to say hi. Thanks for teaching me how to drive. Daniel, you are most welcome, my friend. So glad that we can help you out. And thank you for being part of the Smarter Driver community, my friend. Marion, that saying goes through my mind all the time, Rick. Let them have their crash somewhere else when they are goofy people on the roads. Yeah, Marion, because, you know, and you guys, it sounds like you're driving in the city most of the time, in and around Vancouver and those types of things. There's going to be goofy people, and unfortunately there's going to be more goofy people in the cities, especially in Vancouver, because Vancouver was not well designed in terms of traffic, and there's more goofy people. But, you know, my experience driving the Smarter Defensive Driving model, which is what I teach you, 3 to 4 second following distance, communicating well, driving is a social activity. You know, I've driven in Madrid, in Spain, Barcelona, I've driven in Barcelona, I've driven in London, England, not the little one in Kentucky or the little one in Ontario. I've driven in Australia, in Sydney, in Melbourne. I've driven just about every major city in the United States. Here in Canada, I've driven in Toronto. I drive in Toronto every summer. Drive up to Montreal and those types of things. So it works internationally. This defensive driving model works internationally. But again, it's kind of a mind shift, right? Instead of you against the world, it's driving as a social activity, and we're going to do our Zen driving, good attitude thing and keep ourselves safe, protect our space around our vehicle, because if you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. Know that when you're driving. So staying back in traffic, one vehicle length, having your 3 to 4 second following distance, and shoulder checking, and figuring out reading traffic patterns, interpreting traffic patterns, and understanding the actions of individual road users along the roadways. And yes, there are aggressive drivers. Yes, there are drivers that are, you know, they're going to charge the yellow light. Unfortunately, I get involved in social driving, and sometimes I will charge the yellow light too. Roundabouts, there's a whole other discussion. We have a new roundabout here in Vernon. It's poorly designed because they designed the roundabout as a traffic calming device. Traffic calming device. Can you hear the lullaby? Traffic calming device. God, I hate that term. It's right up there with Playdate and Fur Baby. Oh, I hate those words. I just want to have them jettisoned from the English language. Playdate, Fur Baby, yeah. Traffic calming device. Those are words of the 21st century that will go down in history as the worst words ever. I digress. So yes, and the roundabout, I have driven through that roundabout probably half a dozen times. 3 out of the half a dozen times, 3 out of the 6 times that I've driven through that new roundabout, people have cut me off, like driven into the roundabout, like right in front of me. It's like, dude, I have the right of way. 7X, yes, please come to Vernon. We'll shoot a video. It'll be great. All right, Epic, North America, Asian road signs are different because of US, Canada using MUTCD. This is why I don't remember the different standardization of traffic signs, because they got funny names, okay? Vienna Convention signs, speed limit signs in those red circles with numbers. Yes, so different signs in Europe, China, and here in North America. Excellent. Okay, thank you for putting that up for me, Epic. I knew there was different standardization of signs, traffic signs in North America and traffic signs in China and Europe. Excellent. Traffic signs. Read your traffic signs. It's the one thing that you can do to be a safer, smarter driver and increase your defensive driving skills along the roadway. And especially on a driver's test, you need to read the road signs and incorporate that information into your driving. But after you get your driver's license, read the traffic signs to be a safer, smarter driver. And if you're upgrading to a larger vehicle or driving a bus, driving a semi-truck, any type of larger vehicle or pulling a trailer, these become even more important to stay safe along the roadways. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.